I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Welcome to today's edition of Just the Truth. I'm Joey Hudson. Glad to have you join me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Newsmax White House correspondent James Rosen pressed White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre on ignoring President Joe Biden's dismal approval ratings, as he described them. The two got into a back and forth in yesterday's White House press briefing about which polls accurately reflected what Americans think about President Joe Biden and his ability to potentially serve another 4 years. Yesterday, Joe Biden celebrated birthday number 81. It was a day that Biden would have liked to probably have skipped over for many reasons. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump had a backhanded 81st birthday present for his successor. The 77-year-old Trump released a glowing letter purporting to be from his personal physician, crowing about his, quote, excellent health and claiming that he has lost an unspecified amount of weight. And did Argentina's election this past weekend send a message to the Democrats and to Joe Biden? The winner, Javier Milei, a conservative in a socialist country, won by vowing to slash taxes and spending, ditch the central bank, dollarize Argentina's currency, privatize state industries, and shrink the government by axing useless ministries like the one for women, genders, and diversity. Now, does this sound familiar? Is it a glimpse of what we might see in November 24? We shall see. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. You can leave a quick voice message or send me a text, and your emails are always welcome at joey@joeyhudson.com. Did we spend enough time, you think, on Joe Biden's birthday yesterday? I'm feeling a little badly that we didn't even play happy birthday to him or something, And by the way, I stand corrected. At one point yesterday, I think I referenced a New York Post article that indicated Biden was 80. He actually was 81 yesterday. I knew that, but I think I misread a quote from the New York Post at one point. I got a text message correcting me. Thank you for that. And in Biden's case, he wasn't too happy to celebrate because it again shined the light on his age, an issue that he wants the American people to forget. The last thing Joe Biden wants to talk about is his age and the fact that he's the oldest serving president in our nation's history. And he's not aging very well at all. There's a lot of questions that were being asked. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre issued a very stern defense of President Biden's stamina when questioned over the growing concerns surrounding his age. Here's her response to a question from Mark Meredith with Fox News.
The president's excited to be celebrating his birthday, but I'm curious, David Axelrod told the New York Times, quote, Biden thinks he can cheat nature here, and it's really risky. A, what's the president's response to David Axelrod? Does he respect his opinion? Does he think he's right? But also, is there a real alarm happening behind the scenes that the president is simply too old to stake around for another 4 years?
No, there's no alarm happening behind the scenes. I can only speak behind the scenes here. There's no alarm happening behind the scenes, and I'm certainly not going to comment on everybody who has something to say.
David Axelrod
I didn't say that. Nowhere in my response to you that I said that. I said I'm just not going to comment on everyone that has a comment to say. They're going to speak for themselves. I'm going to speak for the president, and here what I'll say is, look. And also, it's just not my job. It's not my job to think through or to tell people what to think, right? Whether it's the American people out there or a political analyst or as your question is about David Axelrod. It's just not my place to speak to that. I would put the president's stamina, president's wisdom, ability to get this done on behalf of of the American people against anyone on any day of the week.
So this whole discussion about David Axelrod comes about because earlier this month, Axelrod suggested that it may be wise for Biden to drop out of the 2024 presidential race on the heels of a brutal poll that found him losing to President Donald Trump by up to 10 points in 5 different battleground states. You and I talked about that at the time when the poll was released, or the multiple polls. NBC News made the big announcement just this past weekend that in the first time since they have been polling the two candidates, Trump and Biden, for the first time, Trump is winning according to their latest poll. Now, the White House is very quick to downplay the whole idea that these polls are even accurate. We're going to get into that in just a minute. So back to Axelrod. He said that Biden's biggest liability with voters is his age. And while he should be proud of his accomplishments, Axelrod said, the country had too much at stake to risk losing to Donald Trump in the next election. He tried to make that argument. Axelrod doubled down on the criticism earlier yesterday, even after Joe Biden reportedly called him a, quote, prick. He said, I don't care about them thinking that I'm a prick. That's fine, Axelrod told New York Times columnist Maureen Dowd. I hope they don't think the polls are wrong because they're not. Now, pardon my language there. I was just reading what was written. Anna Hudson would not like me even reading that word. However, Jean-Pierre told Fox News during the briefing that there was no alarm behind the scenes. She wants you to believe that the White House staff has no hesitancy whatsoever when it comes to Joe Biden's age. She went on to say that the White House's perspective is that it wasn't about his age, but about his experience. That's what they're trying to make the argument. She said, that's what we believe. And as they say, the proof is in the pudding. The president has used his experience to pass more bipartisan legislation in recent time than any other president, she tries to argue. That's just a fact, she says. Well, no, it's not exactly a fact, Jean-Pierre. It's your opinion. She went on to say that is something we've seen this president do, and that because of his experience, so what we say is we have to judge him by what he's done, not by his numbers. Well, not by his poll numbers, but what about his other numbers, like inflation, cost of living? What about those numbers, Jean-Pierre? Now, while the White House continues to dismiss their concerns about Biden's age and his fitness for serving as president, you can imagine what some of the conservatives and prominent media personalities, how they celebrated today by looking back at the president's gaffes and mishaps that demonstrate an alleged decline due to his advanced age. And that argument can be made. I mean, how many times have we seen Joe Biden stumble either verbally or physically? Republican Texas Representative Wesley Hunt sarcastically tweeted alongside a compilation video of Biden tripping over a sandbag at the U.S. Air Force Academy commencement and tumbling off his bike during a leisurely ride. He said, today is Joe Biden's 81st birthday. But you know what they say, age is just a number. That seems especially true when you consider how energetic, athletic, and vigorous our current president is. Again, sarcasm there. While you'll recall that while handing out diplomas at the U.S. Air Force Academy commencement, this was back in the summer, June, I think, President Biden accidentally fell on the stage. Secret Service rushed over to help him up. The White House said that he was fine, that he just attributed his trip to a sandbag that was left on the stage. In the same month, the president fell off his bike after he got his foot caught in the pedal after trying to come to a stop on his bicycle. Again, to commemorate Biden's 81st birthday, the Republican National Committee's Rapid Response account tweeted a 2-minute video titled 120 Seconds of Biden Showing He's Totally Fit to Be President. Look, you got to look it up. This is one of those where I wish I could show it to you. The video highlights Biden's gaffes, including moments where he lost his train of thought or where he whispered a jumbled answer. Leading up to his 81st birthday yesterday, the president committed several gaffes that raised concerns about his stamina. He said in June that his administration plans to build a transoceanic railroad spanning thousands of miles across the Pacific and Indian Oceans. While attending a campaign reception in September, he told donors an anecdote about why he decided to run for president, but then repeated the same story nearly word for word just a few minutes later, as if he forgot he'd even said it. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre then defended the apparent gaffe, saying that the president was speaking passionately, causing him to repeat the story multiple times. Well, what about all of those fabricated stories that he makes up about about his accomplishments that he says over and over, even after he's corrected? I mean, like being a truck driver or some of the other things that he's just made up over the years. Joe Biden faced backlash for another slip-up that occurred during a September gala to honor Sister Norma Pimentel, the executive director of Catholic Charities of the Rio Grande Valley. During an address to the group, Biden praised the Congressional Black Caucus. He meant to praise the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, who is so involved with Catholic Charities. The president also misremembered how many grandchildren he had, not once, but 3 different times during a September campaign speech. In an effort to keep Biden on his feet and from falling, the president began wearing tennis shoes this year to avoid slipping, and he takes shorter stairs up to Air Force One rather than the traditional steps that all presidents have used, where they stop, turn, and wave before they go aboard Air Force One. And he also began attending physical therapy sessions in 2021 to improve his balance. Look, and there's nothing wrong with that. Let me just be very clear. There's nothing wrong with an 81-year-old man having physical therapy. But you just have to admit your capabilities. You have to admit your limitations. As Biden's age appears to be causing more and more errors, Americans are growing concerned, as we should, about his stamina, about his ability to lead the country. 77% of Americans said in September that the president is too old to govern effectively. 77%. That's a record low number of Americans. Only 28% say that Joe Biden inspires confidence as our country's leader. A few weeks ago, after Axios reported that Biden nearly fell while walking up a set of stairs to take the stage at a Philadelphia event that was promoting the creation of clean hydrogen hubs, Jim Garrity, National Review senior political correspondent, wrote, "The electorate's wariness about Biden's aging is likely rooted in people's real-life experiences. Almost every American has seen a grandparent or a parent succumb to the ravages of age. We know that some people age well and retain their health and mental sharpness as they get older, while some don't, and sometimes those who lose their acuity decline rapidly," Garrity writes. Last year, the White House reportedly kept the president's birthday celebrations low-key in an effort to downplay that the president was turning 80 years old. Garrity wrote yesterday that he expected the same. For the president's 81st birthday, he had 2 events on his public schedule: his daily briefing as well as the annual pardoning of the national Thanksgiving turkey. Biden and First Lady Jill Biden will travel to Nantucket, Massachusetts sometime today, we're told, to celebrate his birthday, which Jean-Pierre said will include a coconut cake. Garrity wrote, Biden, lots of Americans see lots of reasons to worry. The light schedule, the rarity of sit-down interviews, the sudden angry outburst, which he's inclined to do, the odd, confused, and erratic behavior at public events, the shuffling feet and occasional falls, the meandering stories with his voice trailing off, and the frequent off-the-cuff declarations that his own staff won't allow him to answer questions. He's not the same man he was when he was vice president or U.S. senator, and we can all see that, Garrity wrote. I mean, even some of Biden's own party are showing concern over the president's ability to govern, let alone run for re-election in 2024. Less than a year until the 2024 election, Democrats are reportedly worried about Biden's chances, pointing to his age primarily, his administration's failure to sell his achievements, and his campaign's apparent lack of direction. This according to the Washington Post. While both conservatives and Democrats alike sound the alarm around his 81st birthday, the White House remains firm that Joe Biden is the right man for the job. Ben LeBolt, White House Communications Director, told the New York Times, because of President Biden's decades of experience in public service and deep relationships with leaders in Congress, he passed legislation that has helped to create more than 14 million jobs, he said. He's lowered prescription drug costs, they repeat, invest in America's infrastructure and technology, and has led to the strongest economic recovery in the developed world. Now, we are talking about coming off of COVID. LeBolt continued, he has revitalized alliances on the world stage, cultivated over many years to promote America's interests and respond forcefully when global crises arise. But no matter how much the White House tries to overshadow Biden's declining state with his wisdom and his accomplishments, if you believe those, some still remain very grim about Biden's 81st birthday. Vince Coglianese, Daily Caller editorial director and a radio host, wrote, Biden turns 81, doesn't look a day over 90. Again, sarcasm. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639 is our truth text line. Love to get your comments. Keep them coming. You can leave a quick voice message, and I'll use that in a future podcast as well as time permits. And your emails, always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. So former President Donald Trump had a little fun celebrating Joe Biden's 81st birthday. Trump, 77 years old, not too far behind, but a young 77, released a glowing letter purporting to be from his personal physician, crowing about his, quote, excellent health and claiming that he has lost an unspecified amount of weight. The letter was signed by Dr. Bruce Ehrenwald of Morristown, New Jersey. He wrote, I am pleased to report that President Trump's overall health is excellent. His physical exams were well within the normal range, and his cognitive exams were exceptional. Cardiovascular studies are all normal, and cancer screening tests are all negative. President Trump has reduced his weight through an improved diet and continued daily physical activity while maintaining a rigorous schedule, according to the doctor's letter. Ehrenwald claimed to have conducted several comprehensive examinations of Trump since he left office, with the most recent taking place September the 13th. Weeks prior to the September checkup, Trump's weight was listed at 215 pounds. The way we know that, according to the New York Post, is because that's what he weighed when he turned himself in, and he was booked, alleging that he had improperly tried to overturn the 2020 election results in Georgia. Remember when he turned himself in? Trump's reported weight, which was met with widespread disbelief among the left, would be about 30 pounds lighter than what he had disclosed in his last White House physical. Both Biden and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis have raised questions about Donald Trump's cognitive abilities following a handful of verbal flubs and other mishaps on the stump. Now, you very seldom see Donald Trump making those mistakes, but everybody can make a mistake. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis telling CNN State of the Union Sunday, the presidency is not a job for somebody that's pushing 80 years old. Of course, he's targeting Trump. I just think that that's something that has been shown with Joe Biden. Father Tom is undefeated. Donald Trump is not exempt from any of that. Trump, of course, has a long history of bragging about his physical condition. During the 2016 election cycle, his campaign promoted a letter from his then physician, Dr. Harold Bornstein, who proclaimed that Trump would be the healthiest individual ever elected to the presidency. And should Donald Trump regain the presidency and serve all 4 years, he will overtake Joe Biden as the oldest sitting commander-in-chief in our country's history. Should Biden get reelected and serve a full second term, he'll be 86 at its conclusion. 86 years old. His physical report was released in February, declaring him a healthy, vigorous 80-year-old male. The president's physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, said that Biden weighed 178 pounds and he's 6 feet tall. The doctor noted that Biden suffers from conditions including some, I can't say here, gastroesophageal reflux. I guess that's just like GERD, non-valvular atrial fibrillation, mild sensory peripheral neuropathy of the feet, and allergies, according to the doctor's report. Both President Biden and Trump are, of course, their respective parties' front runners for the 2024 presidential nomination. Oconee County Sheriff Mike Crenshaw told a church service this past weekend that God had performed a miracle last week when his deputy, Corporal Lucas Watts, 27, was shot last Thursday afternoon when he tried to pull over a vehicle and has survived what was described as an unsurvivable wound. I have an update for you on Corporal Watts. Before we get into those details, though, let me take a minute to tell you about PhD weight loss and nutrition. 3 years ago, I was introduced to Dr. Ashley Lucas, and boy, am I glad I was. I lost 30 pounds within a few months, and over 3 years later, I've been able to maintain that weight. And the reason I have is because PhD weight loss and nutrition is not a diet. It's not one of these fad diets where you lose the weight and then 6 months or a year later you gain it back. It's all about the science of nutrition. What to eat, when to eat, and how to eat. And all that's very important if you want to lose weight and maintain that weight loss. Dr. Ashley Lucas, founder of PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, has a scientifically proven program that works. Again, it's not a fad. It's a lifestyle, and I'm sure you're going to love it as much as I do. Make the call right now, 864-252-4925, 864-252-4925. Call and set up your first consultation. You can visit them online as well at myphdweightloss.com. I promise you, it's a call that you're never going to regret. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official partner of the Clemson Tigers. So, Oconee County Sheriff Mike Crenshaw said God performed a miracle Thursday night in Greenville, South Carolina. This was the message that Sheriff Crenshaw delivered at a church service this past Sunday after one of his deputies was shot in the line of duty.
I don't know why we're in this, but we are. But folks, I'm here to tell you, from the time he got shot, from the time his wife touched him, had to be 2.5, 3 hours. I saw a dead man come back to life. Not because of Mike Crenshaw, not because of God, and because of intervening prayer, I truly believe.
He was talking about Corporal Lucas White. He's 27 years old, was shot last Thursday afternoon when he tried to pull over a vehicle. Sheriff Crenshaw spoke at First Baptist Westminster, where he gave a first-hand account of how he says God worked a miracle. Crenshaw said the location where Watts was shot was in a place where it would have taken an ambulance 30 to 45 minutes to get to. He said because of that, deputies loaded Deputy Watts in the back of a pickup truck and took him to a local fire department. Sheriff Crenshaw said that that Deputy Watts was too unstable to fly and was taken to Prisma Health Greenville by ambulance. Sheriff Crenshaw said Greenville County Sheriff Hobart Lewis arrived at the hospital ahead of him and called Sheriff Crenshaw to tell him that Watts' wound was, quote, not survivable. Sheriff Crenshaw described how Corporal Watts was shot. He told the church congregation, I'm not talking about a grazing wound to the head. I'm talking about a bullet to his brain, the sheriff said. When Sheriff Crenshaw got to the hospital, he said Watts' wife, Haley, said she wanted to see her husband. He described the next moments at the hospital. He said they carry the wife in. She touches him, and he starts moving. A tear rolls down his face. The doctor says, let's go. Let's get him into surgery right now, immediately. Get him into surgery. Go, 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 as the sheriff described it. Crenshaw said the doctors called the surgery very risky, but that Corporal Watts made it through. Sheriff Crenshaw said that Watts started to respond to verbal commands and was able to move his arms and legs just a bit. He remains critical. Sheriff Crenshaw says he believes that God sent him to the hospital because he wanted Crenshaw to witness and to see what he was about to do. Sheriff asked for continued prayers for Corporal Watts and his family. What a message. And please, let's continue praying for this deputy. Your comments are welcome on the Truth text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. You can also leave a voice message, and your emails are welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Now, this was quite the surprise for air travelers. A woman gave birth on an airplane as shocked passengers watched the whole thing unfold. So what happened? Soon after boarding an international flight, this happened earlier in November, an expectant mother was forced to totally wing it when she unexpectedly went into labor and gave birth aboard the aircraft. A video that was uploaded, you heard cheering passengers on the Pegasus Airlines plane. It was flying from Istanbul to Marseille, France, as paramedics at the Sabiha Gökçen International Airport marched onto the sky bus to assist the unidentified woman who had welcomed her child literally moments before takeoff. Footage of the event showed awe-stricken flyers as they were trying to get a good look, a glimpse of this impromptu birth. You could see one passenger collecting what appears to be baby clothes from other travelers as a gift to the mother and the child. According to reports, the pregnant woman began experiencing intense labor pains as the flight crew made final preparations for takeoff. Flight attendants conducted first aid on the woman before moving her to the back of the plane where she gave birth. This bundle of joy is not the only one to be born in airborne. Kendria Roden, then 21, of Hartford, Connecticut, welcomed a baby boy in the clouds while on an American Airlines flight from New York to the Dominican Republic in October of last year. A few weeks later, in December, another woman who reportedly had no clue she was even pregnant, I'm not quite sure how that happens, gave birth while journeying from Ecuador to Spain. She named her baby Maximiliano in honor of one of the helpful passengers who helped in the safe delivery. These back-to-back baby debuts aside, childbirth on airplanes is very uncommon, we're told, because pregnant women are rarely allowed to fly in their third trimester, according to Global Residence Planning Hub Best Citizenships, which notes that there have only been approximately 75 babies born above the birds in the past century. In fact, medical aviation firm MedAir notes that friendly sky births only happen to about 1 in every 26 million passengers. Dr. Paulo Alves, the brand's global medical director, told Condé Nast Traveler in 2018, is not the best place for you to have your child for many reasons. That's an understatement. The doctor said, for one thing, the air is thinner, so it's harder for the baby to breathe. He said it's like giving birth to a premature child in Mexico City, altitude-wise. On the Truth text line, Ace writes, Joey, I believe the world has become greedy and lazy. I'm not sure which is worse, the greed or the laziness. Ace, appreciate your comment. Jeff writes, what does YouTube have to do with school if students use it to learn? That would be different if it's a school device. If your child needs it, then buy them one. Also, you're right, that coach should get a raise. Also, it was after practice. Now, he's talking about the coach that I told you the story of in Georgia who lost his coaching job because he allowed some of his athletes to be baptized after practice one day. Thank you, Jeff, for your comment. Susan writes on the Truth text line, I consider self-checkouts to be a godsend because it beats standing in long lines at regular registers. Of course, having run a register the last few years I worked for Walmart, I find them fairly easy to use. I also prefer bagging my own items, putting all the frozen food together and stocking my freezer straight from the bag instead of having to separate it once I get home because the cashier mixed it all up. This in reference to the story that a number of retail chains are rethinking the idea of self-checkouts. Texter writes, here's the name, address, phone, and fax number for the superintendent who fired the football coach. It doesn't make sense that she'd continue allowing him to teach. Wouldn't she be afraid that he might say something about God in the classroom? She needs to be voted out. Again, another reference to the coach who lost his job for baptizing some of his student athletes. Our positive encouragement for the day by a texter: choosing to be positive and grateful for what you have now is going to determine how you're going to live the rest of your life. God bless. Thank you. From Facebook, Mark writes, we strongly need you back on public radio, Joey. Your perspective for what's going on in this country is a voice the people need. Love your podcast, but thousands of voters need educating on what's going on, and so many are clueless. God bless you, sir. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. I miss talking with you guys on the radio as well. Glad you're listening to Just the Truth podcast. And an email, Mark in Forest City writes, Trump rallies need to run consistently a video of Janet Yellen with a big counter showing how much our deficit is growing each minute while he speaks. Appreciate that email as well. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639 is where you can send your text. You can leave a voice message, and you can email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. So did Argentina's election this past weekend send a message to Democrats and Joe Biden? The winner, Javier Milei, a conservative in a socialist country, won by vowing to slash taxes and spending, ditch the central bank, dollarize Argentina's currency, privatize state industries, and shrink the government by axing useless ministries. And he gives one as an example, the Women, Genders, and Diversity Committee. Is this a glimpse of what we might see in November of next year? Portions of the Day Show brought to you by Discounted Appliance Warehouse. If you're in the market for replacing a broken appliance, or maybe you're just upgrading your entire kitchen, look no further than in Pickens, South Carolina, at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. When you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, there's never any shipping or supply issues. They have over 1,500 appliances in stock, which means you can buy today and use it today. I'm talking 11,000 square feet slam full of appliances. And with their expert installation, their award-winning service department, and extended warranties, I promise you, Discounted Appliance Warehouse has you covered well after the sale. That's because you're more than just a credit card swipe to Jeff and Johnny and the whole team at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. Let me encourage you to check them out if you're in the market for a new appliance. Let them know I sent you. Let them know you listen to Just the Truth podcast. Find them online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. So in the New York Post, an editorial written by the Post editorial board. Headline, Argentina's clear message, the economy comes first. Viva la Argentina. Argentine voters pick right-wing libertarian Javier Milei over lefty Sergio Massa as their president Sunday, sending a clear message to the country's political elite: ditch the socialism and fix the economy. The piece goes on to write, with a big personality, outsider persona, and unique hair, Milei draws comparisons to former President Donald Trump, but make no mistake, voters put him in office because of his ideas, they write. He vowed to slash taxes and spending. He vowed to ditch the central bank. He vowed to axe useless ministries. In short, just the overhauls that Argentina's crippled economy needs after decades of disastrous lefty Peronist policies that brought inflation to a crippling 143%. He's also death on wokeism, they write, which is also related to the economy as it elevates lefty ideology over reality. For his kookiness, like toting a chainsaw at rallies to symbolize his passion for cutting government waste, Milei is the last exit ramp before a cliff. They go on to write, with the economy and inflation the main issues killing President Biden in the polls, Milei's win should be setting off alarm bells in the White House. Libertarian candidate Javier Milei was elected the next president of Argentina on November the 19th. When it comes down to brass tacks, voters will put their wallets and their families' welfare first every time. In Argentina, as in America, it's the economy, stupid. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me as I broadcast from the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com, myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails with the most up-to-date news. And by the way, plan to join me today, 9 a.m. to 12 noon, as I sit in for Mike Gallagher. Just download the Mike Gallagher Show app. Visit MikeOnline.com. Listen there. Hope you'll plan to join me on the Mike Gallagher Show today. Thanks for spending part of your day with me. Keep your comments coming via the Truth text line, 864-477-5639. Keep your emails coming as well. Have a great day. We're back tomorrow. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.